Like to call this meeting of the Coventry Town Council to order at 6:03 p.m. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua is absent this evening. Councilmember Capaldi.
Here.
Councilmember Shockley.
Here.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Here.
President Lima.
Here, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. In the event of an emergency, those present in council chambers this evening can exit out the back doors labeled either 1 or 2 to the front lawn or back parking lot of Town Hall. Public comment on docketed items only. Are there any members of the public who'd like to make a comment on docketed items in council chambers? Please come to the mic, state your name and address for the record. Any members of the public on Zoom? We have one. Please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening.
Good evening. We can hear you. State your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Jerry Narkowitz. I live at 21 Beach Street, Coventry, Rhode Island.
Thanks. Go ahead.
Let me see if I can. I don't seem to be able to hear you guys really well.
Can you hear us?
Oh, yeah. There we go. There we
Yep.
go. All right. So today I wrote a short by my definition, document in reference to Briar Point Park. And I wanted to read it so that it's in the record, if you don't mind.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So we have some, as the Lake Tioga Association, we have some real concerns with how Lake Tioga has been run over the last few years due to a funding problem. And I pointed out some of the things that I think are really important for you all to consider as you go forward with your budgeting. Number one, the unlicensed and illegal running of personal watercraft concession from the park. It's a dangerous situation with personal watercraft being pulled out on the beach to sell rides. In past years, this has taken place with no oversight or involvement with the park staff or police. Number two, gate function is consistently not operational, and this results in activity within the park at all hours. This can involve loud music and other activities not in keeping with the neighborhood environment. Music can be heard on East Shore Drive and the Mohawk Street area, and of course in the area of West Shore Drive. 3, weekend activity during the months of June, July, August, and September is used by out-of-state people. It's not even a benefit to the town residents. As a general observation, about 50% of the cars are from Connecticut or Massachusetts. 4, trash and debris is funded by the taxpayers of Coventry, and the possible environmental problems associated with waste is of major environmental concern. When walking in the park on Monday, you'll find overfilled trash containers. These end up requiring staff to clean up the area. 5, public calls to the police department for noise and safety issues often do not result in a timely response due to the manpower shortage at the police department. 6, the town incurs cost of portable toilets when a facility with up-to-date septic treatment is available but is not used due to staffing. 7, the Tioga Lake Association has applied for a grant to prevent or limit invasive aquatic vegetation from entering the lake. We hope to shortly have a boat washing station for boats located at the town boat ramp on Tioga Avenue. The personal watercraft are generally carried into the lake at the park, avoiding the future wash station. That concludes what I've written, unless you have questions for me.
Thank you very much. Your note that you did share with the clerk was distributed to the council earlier today. I can confirm that. So we do have that, your written testimony, as well as what you shared on the record. So appreciate it.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, I think I wish you guys a wonderful evening.
Thank you very much. Are there any
Oh,
members
that-
of the public on Zoom or in council chambers who'd like to make a public comment on docketed items? Going once, twice, 3 times, public comment on docketed items is closed. Moving on to introduction of new matters before the council. FY25 budget workshop. For folks watching at home, the council is conducting 2 budget workshops over today and tomorrow night to discuss each town department's budget for the FY25 year commencing on July 1 of this year. And departments have been split across 2 nights. This evening, we have town council, board of assessment review, tax assessor, tax collector, canvassing, public works, library, parks and recreation, building engineering, police, public safety, and planning. Manager Perillo, Director Savetti, I don't know if you want to give a preface before we kick off this evening.
Sure. I just wanted to say we've kind of done things a little differently this year. Over the next 2 nights, our goal is to give you an entire picture of what our directors feel they need going into FY25 to run their individual operations when it comes to personnel, equipment, facilities, and so forth. So we've met with all the directors. We're having ongoing conversations with them. We have vetted their budgets. However, we've not made any cuts as of yet. That's going to come next Tuesday night in my presentation. But I just kind of wanted to give the council a full overview of what each department director is requesting. The numbers are quite staggering. If you can see the second page, we're looking at about a $7 million increase. That's on the muni side and the school side. The muni side is about 4.96 million. The school side is about 2.8 million, not counting the extra 1 million in maintenance. And Mr. Savetti provided me the number of about a 9.9% levy increase. This would be as is. Obviously, we know that that's not feasible. So we are going to do our best to get that to a manageable number. But I hope tonight just to kind of have some high level discussions about with each director as to what they see, where they see the department heading, and answer any questions of the council. Thank you.
I will just add as well, I asked because I thought this was helpful last year. I asked the Director Savetti what the kind of key was in terms of percentage equivalent, but because we don't have the tax rates yet, we won't, this will adjust slightly, but roughly 1% increase equals 787,000. If you wanted to write that down.
Could you repeat that?
Yep, 1% equals 787,000, roughly.
And also we'll have the budget books that you guys received last year to you next week once I present my budget. We thought it was a little premature to start printing them now, knowing that this document that is in front of you is going to change. So we'll have the budget books for you next week.
Well, can I just ask the council, would you prefer to keep the digital or do you want the binder? I mean, before you guys go through all the trouble, what's the pleasure of the council on that? Councilwoman Capaldi.
I'll take digital.
Yeah, I'm fine with that as well. Save a couple
President
bucks.
LeBlanc?
Either works for me.
Okay. Yeah, I think you and your wife spent a weekend doing that last year, so unless she enjoyed it. Okay. Okay. So we'll go right in order here. The first one we have is or are we going by the way our packets presented?
Doing by the schedule.
By the schedule?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first one we have here is town council.
So the increase here.
Hold on, can you just let us
Sure.
flip and
One quick question while we're flipping, if you don't mind. What had you said the increase was? I think you'd said about 9%. Does that include the state increase as well?
No. Nope.
Yeah, that
So-
9.9% would be if we're, the
This is
entire
just- I
increase
think
was
this is
going to
just
be
the-
based on the tax levy. So that's
Okay.
just a percentage of the tax levy, what we would have to get to generate the 7.8 million request of the department.
Okay. Because you have 6.45 here, so
Well,
threw me.
that's the 6.45, that actually represents the percentage increase in the budget, but that doesn't relate to what the increase in the levy.
Right. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
You can go ahead.
So the only increase really in the council budget is the addition of the two new council people, two new council members starting in November of 24. So that's why the salary line is going from 22,500 to 29,375. Everything else is pretty much status quo after that.
Discussion from members of the council? Okay.
Oh, excuse me. Hillary,
Yes, Councilmember
Um,
Shockley.
just because I can't recall, do all members other than the president get paid the same amount?
Yes.
I thought so. Okay.
Next on the list is the Board of Assessment Review. That's pretty much level funded from this current year. No change in that department, 640. Board of Assessment Review, that's going to stay the same as this year.
Discussion, questions, members of the council? Okay.
Tax assessor. Where is she? She's hiding. So briefly, tax assessor, the big change is the increase to the evaluation service. So last year we gave them 125,000 approved FY 24. Right now, this year we're looking for 175. So it's a $50,000 increase. That's the biggest thing, and I'll let Kerry speak to from her perspective. Wow.
So again, as town manager just mentioned, the biggest change is the tax valuation services. As you know, a meeting or two ago, the council approved setting up a special revenue fund where we'd be setting the funds aside for the future revaluation. And in 2025, the end of 25, so fiscal 26, right? So fiscal 26 is when we're gonna have to have the full revaluation. So we're trying to ramp up the fund so that we'd be able to pay for that full reval, which is probably gonna run anywhere from $400,000 to $500,000. So we're envisioning having the 175 in there this year to set aside, and then we'd be able to decrease that going forward. Hopefully dropping next year to be, 125, 150, and then after that, we'd be building that fund, because as you may know, when we have the statistical reval, which is every 3 years, we do receive reimbursement. So that reimbursement of 60% reimbursement, that would go back into the special revenue fund and help pay the cost for those years. Yeah, full reval, there is no reimbursement. That's 100% on the town. So again, we're just trying to build that in there, slight increase this year, rather than waiting till fiscal 26 and having to do a, $400,000 or $500,000 line item in the budget. And the other changes we did, slight increases. Right now, we don't know what healthcare and dental, what those increases are gonna be. So the budget you have before you, I instructed department heads to budget for a 6% increase in healthcare cost, 4 to 6% increase in dental cost, life insurance, same thing, about a 4 to 6% increase. Again, we generally don't receive that information from the trust until end of April, beginning of May. So we're hoping we can get that sooner rather than later to know that exact cost. Obviously, if it comes in significantly different and we're far along the budget process, we would have to make some adjustments before the beginning of the year.
Minor thing, but important nonetheless. I couldn't find where you reorganize the fire district pilots line and it's somewhere else in the budget. Where did you, because it's showing here it's not being budgeted in here for FY25. So I just want to know where we ended up putting it. The pilot payments we have to make to the fire districts, there were those settlements we agreed to that we have to pay them every year. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, so again, what I was looking at is really it's a wash. We're gonna collect the revenue and disperse it out. So I don't know, if we're not reporting the revenue, we wouldn't report the expense. So we would recognize a portion of the revenue on those properties.
Okay.
So we could certainly put a line in them and it goes up the revenue.
As long as we don't get poked by them,
Mhm.
like, and with the tap of the finger on the desk and
Right.
we are ahead of it, that's fine. Members of the council? Okay.
Again, looking at the proposed budget submitted by the director, it's looking at about a 4% decrease in the budget. Primary reason, if you look previous year, the approved fiscal 2024, we had a retirement payout budget at approximately 20,000. So that individual has retired. That would be a decrease in the budget. Plus, there's also some slight savings in the department costs, the deputy collector and the clerks, when you look at the payroll in total. Although there's been a reassignment. One of the clerks is now a new position, deputy tax collector. That's now a non-union position. So that's put into this proposed budget. But everything else has pretty much remained the same. Again, it's the one item at the very bottom there, you can see like we did last year, we did remove the 200,000 that's contributed from or to the sewer enterprise fund. We're showing that as part of the debt service section of the budget rather than being a component of the tax collector's budget. In my mind, it really wasn't a part of the budget, never should have been included there. But again, if there's any questions, Monique, I'm sure can answer. She has a lot of notes here, so that's a good thing.
Members of the council? Or I know if you prepared comments, I
Right,
would
I
love
would
to hear them.
Oh, no, they were just in case you had questions.
Vice President LeBlanc?
Usually you don't get questions when you decrease the ask. That is the key.
All right.
Just one thing, if I can just note, when you look at the budget, similar to what we did last year, we do include a pension line item on each department's budget. As you know, we have the ICMA pension, so a defined contribution plan where the town would contribute up to the 10% contribution if the employee does that. And then you have the regular town pension plan. What we tried to do is include 10% of the salaries in each department's budget, whereas in years prior to 2024, the entire actuarially determined contribution was put under the human resources budget. So we try to allocate it to get a better indication of the true cost of each department. We factor in the pension.
Okay.
Canvassing, Lori. This year obviously is an election year. So her budget is increasing due to that, the poll workers, poll locations and so forth. And also Lori will be retiring at the end of the year. So we are transitioning with an additional person in that department to guide us through the elections and kind of learn at the same time in order to eventually, hopefully replace Lori, which is an ongoing discussion that I can't get to tonight, but we are looking forward as to how we're going to replace that position. We do believe that it's titled incorrectly. So I'm not sure that's something that we can take care of, Mr. Solicitor, in the budget. Her title, or does that have to happen down the road? I would change the budget first to anticipate the title change. Okay.
There's no discussion to be had about how her position is filled. It's in state law. We're one of 4 communities
Exactly.
where the
So,
council appoints.
so currently Lori is a union member designated as a clerk. She really should be a registrar outside the union to follow state law. So we need to get that process going. We are gonna address that in our hopefully last union contract negotiation next week
Mhm.
with them.
All right.
So if I can, just a couple comments. As town manager mentioned, significant increase in the budget. You're going from an approved budget, council budget of approximately 170,000 in fiscal 24 to the proposed budget by the director of approximately 242,000. So a 42% increase. Obviously, different things happening this year with the presidential primary happening next month, this month. We're in it right now. Then you have the primary next September, the general election. And again, sitting with Lori, she can explain more, the number of polling places you're required to have open, how many people you need at each polling place. There are a couple items when we did meet, some items we may adjust, things that the town manager and I had discussed and we're looking into. The budget does include all-day referendum, financial town meeting, so those items in the event that a budget can't be passed. Obviously, with the significant increase you're looking at, we had roughly 7.8 million in requests from all the departments, including the school department. We need to make some cuts to the director's proposed budget. So some of those items, I think of items that town manager and I are looking at that we hopefully can eliminate and we won't need. But that's, a decision the council would have to make at the end of the day to say, do we still want to keep those in there? Depends how you feel with, the budget process and where we're going, if you think a budget would get approved by this council. But Lori can explain a little bit about, if you want to just explain the polling places maybe and the,
This upcoming one, we only have, oh, sorry, is it I? Okay, in April, it's a primary of presidential. We don't have to open all polling places, but in September and November, we have to open 17 polling places. And that's because of the way our areas are separated between representative and senator seats. Like 3 different ones we have out in the western end. Each one has to be done separately. You can't combine. Again, in District 2, I think it's only in District 5 that you can combine 2 of the polling places, which we had 18 and now we're down to 17. But it's the way that the representative senators fall that you can't combine. So we have 17 polling places, both for September and November. And we are mandated to 6 poll workers per polling place. But around being November, I budgeted for 20 in case if we have to put 2 moderators at a heavier polling place. Because the flow is going to be terrific this year. I think we're going to be really jamming.
Do
in
you
November.
anticipate, if the legislation passes that raises the precinct cap by 50, that we could see more consolidation of polling places?
Nope.
You don't know?
No, because maybe that one polling place I'm thinking of but everyone has it separate. We have 6 representatives and only 2 senators in Coventry. And the way they fall, you can't match them together.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, it's 21-28, 21-33, they're all off. So the most I would say is eliminating 1 if it was capping off.
Right. Councilor Shockley?
So the one expense that seemed to stand out outside of it being an election year was the clerk special. The salary went from 47,700 to 70,313. I know we talked about changing a title, but are we changing a salary as well?
no, so what you have there, the clerk special, that actually includes a clerk for the entire year and then a second clerk for 6 months. So the overlap of the training. The anticipation is to have the new clerk come in, start in July 1, the beginning of the fiscal year, so that they're here through the whole election cycle assisting Lori. So you really have 1.5 employees there versus one of the previous year.
Gotcha. You said that, but it didn't gel for me that it was the reason for that increase.
Working part-time, you need to be there and see every aspect and something that comes up and how do you gonna correct it and what you're gonna do and who you calling.
Do we have a plan, though, to keep 2 people in that department beyond when Lori retires? Because to be the 8th largest municipality and have only 1 person running elections is probably not wise.
I'll agree with you.
We're gonna, I think eventually we are going to need at least one other person for sure. This budget only has, like Bob said, 1.5. If you felt that you wanted to put 2 people there, we could definitely find a second person.
I mean, if you look at sister communities in size, most of them at least, whether they designate someone from the clerk's office to help, that's part of their responsibility, or they have somebody, most people have at least 2 in case one person is out. I mean, and the other thing too is just being mindful of who you're able to recruit when the time comes, when you're looking at, I don't know if it's going to be this person or not, but Coventry does currently have the lowest paid elections director in the state. So, and again, it's the 8th largest municipality, so it's not like it's a small.
I would say we would
operation.
definitely need another full-time body. I don't think the clerk's office could take on any more responsibility right now. So I think we would need an additional full-time person in that office.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're talking to the mic.
I have done it, but it's been a real struggle. And especially this last couple of times, I've had issues, and thank God for Dawn that we work well together and that she can do, take over. But when she's on, like with me, I was healthy enough. And if somebody, something happens and there's need, it's hard to be able to just throw anybody into the position. You can realize that.
Yeah. Any further discussion, members of the council? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna jump to library. Megan? Kev, what do they say? Best for last? No, nothing.
We fell to 8th after last census. What page is library?
So I'll
Anyone?
just touch base quick if I can. If you recall last year, the library, we also incorporated the grant and aid as part of the library. Prior to 2024, that revenue was separate. The expenses weren't reported there. So we did include it all starting in fiscal 24. And you see that continue this year as well. So that's why you have a couple of pages that deal with Department 930. And then right after that, you see Department 930 GIA, which is just the grant and aid. That's obviously, a wash. You don't have the revenue components right now, but the expenses that Megan's proposing in the grant and aid, 260,770, that represents 100% of the proposed governor's budget at this point for the grant and aid. There's still some discussion, and Megan could touch base on it. That may be changing. They're hoping it changes, but I'll let Megan get into those details.
So the budget request, I'm requesting a 4% increase to the town appropriation. This is a 2% salary increase for our full-time staff. And it's also making our part-time outreach librarian full-time. So we would be going from 7 full-time people to 8. Right now she works 21 hours. So that would increase the salary line, the pension line, and the payroll taxes. Everything else in the town appropriation would remain about the same, slight increases in utilities due to rising costs. And it also includes the minimum wage increase. And like Bob was saying, the anticipated grant and aid is $260,000. It's $9,229 more than last year, but it's $8,844 less than we anticipated due to the governor level funding libraries, which is what that resolution was the other night. We're hoping that by the towns submitting these resolutions, maybe he'll change his mind and fully fund libraries, but we won't know that for a while. So the formula is based on prior fiscal year's appropriation and expenditure. So in fiscal year 23, the town increased the library's appropriation by 5%, which is resulting in the $9,000 increase this year. Fiscal year 24, we asked for a minor increase. So this is, a 4% increase. Looking at the budget, the trustees felt making the part-time outreach position full-time is important. But in order to keep our budget request as low as possible, we would probably need to cut our Sunday hours. The library is open 35 Sundays a year, 12 to 4. Staff is paid time and a half due to state law, and the cost is $17,000. We average about 85 visitors on Sundays. It does not affect our minimum standards. We have to be open a minimum of 60 hours a week. With Sundays, we're open 64 hours. We're one of the few libraries that are open on Sundays: Cumberland, Cranston, Warwick, North Kingstown, Barrington. But if you would like to keep us open on Sundays, we would move the health insurance for the full-time position into the town appropriation and fund the Sundays with grant and aid.
Members of the council? So help me follow this. Is it kind of same pants, different pocket is what you're proposing to keep Sundays? I'm just a little confused.
Yeah. If we were to keep the Sundays open, we would just move the health insurance just to make it, the health insurance go into the town appropriation side. It's about 20,000. I put that in the grant and aid.
Okay.
In this budget. So the Sundays are helping pay for the new full-time position.
Councilmember Shockley.
Just to make sure I'm reading this correctly. So the outreach librarian is the children's librarian? Is that why that line went up the amount that it did?
Yeah, so currently she's in the line item that is, I believe it's senior librarian, youth services.
Because that didn't really go up.
It went, so, which one? No.
The reason-
Librarian children.
Yeah, the reason I asked about librarian children is because that's the one that went up a significant amount.
Yes, so that's where it is. And that includes like another full-time position too. So, I mean, another part-time position. So we would need to create like another line item in this budget. It's not actually in here. But it does increase the salary line a little bit. And then moving some other salaries into grant and aid, it's kind of moving things around, but.
Mr. Savetti, speaking about positions, one thing that would be helpful for me this year is to have a listing of all of our departments, have a listing of the number of FTEs per department. And I would like that broken out into two things: FTEs that are currently employed, and then another line item that says new position. Okay, and then I would also, if we can, like to know when we actually think we're going to hire these new positions. Because for a very long time, this town budgets for a full salary for a position, knowing that they're probably not going to hire them for like 4 or 5 months. And that would be a vacancy calculation, which I'm assuming you know what that is. And we wouldn't be asking for 7 million. We could possibly be asking for, 6.5 million, because we're actually factoring in that vacancy of that position or those positions. That would be helpful. Thank you.
Right now, we're at 168 is our current number.
168 of that's currently employed, but in the budget, I don't know. are we at?
There's,
one-
there's some more asks there.
Correct.
Yep. I'll
So
get to
that schedule would certainly help.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Capaldi.
Hi. Did you say that to fund this part-timer into a full-timer, you would think of closing on Sunday? How many people do you usually get on a Sunday, and do you have the full staff there?
We have, we have about 85, we average about 85 people coming in on Sundays for the 35 Sundays. We have 4 part-time people that work on Sundays at time and a half. So it costs 17,000.
Thank you.
Councilmember Shockley.
Just to follow up on the question, how do you think the town would be better served? You know, making an outreach position full-time or keeping a library open on
Yeah,
Sundays?
I mean, that's what we talked about with the trustees, and they, you know, they feel like the outreach position is a really important position. She goes into all of the preschools and the daycares, and right now she goes 3 days a week. Her schedules, she goes to Child Inc., Child Care Plus. She does the YMCA after school program. She does All About Kids, another YMCA program, Washington Oak, and another Black Rock YMCA program, Munchkin Land, and Father Doyle. And she does a lot of those year round, some not in the summer because they're not open. But then we also go out into the community, and she's really like the library in the community and getting more residents to know about library services and to use the library. And people come in because she tells them all the things that we do, and then they come into the library to use the library. So the trustees felt that it was an important position to make full-time. Plus we're short-staffed in the library, so she also works in the library also. So it would help to have a full-time position.
Vice President Blank.
So you say Saturdays is about 85 people. What's a typical, Sundays, what's a typical weekday? How many people usually come in?
A couple hundred.
Couple hundred?
Yeah.
Okay. Just my 2 cents here. I mean, having Sunday available for homeowners that are, because during the week, some homeowners can't make it to the library and maybe they want to bring their children here. I think having that Sunday is important, but that's just my opinion.
Well, how late do you stay open during the week?
We're open Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m., Friday and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Yeah.
And then Sundays, 12 to 4.
I mean, to me, I think I value the outreach. I think if you had to make a decision between the two, I might say sacrifice the Sunday, and if you can build it back in at at a later date, you can. But it sounds like the staff position would be more valuable, someone that you can use for other things. But that's just me. I don't know how much that 4 hours on a Sunday is like the make it or break it, given the Saturday and then staying open later on the weekdays. Councilor Shockley.
Just as a thought on top of it, I don't know how many people in the summer use the library on Sundays for air conditioning.
During the summer, we're not open on Sundays. It's only
Okay, so it wasn't
it's
there
only
anyway.
35.
Okay.
It's only from September to May.
Okay.
Councilwoman Capaldi.
And how many people do you get there on a Saturday compared to your Sunday? When we lived down the street, when my kid was young, we always went on a Saturday.
Yeah, we're busy. We're really busy on Saturdays.
Saturday's your best
We
busy
have a
day. I
couple.
bet.
Well, it's not the busiest day. I don't think. I think Tuesday for some reason is the busiest day. But Saturdays we have a couple hundred people in every Saturday.
Any further discussion on the library budget? All right, thank you. Can I make a request for when you guys present the budget book and we make a packet? Can it not be scanned? Can it be a PDF so we can actually search it? Like I can do Control F because the scans don't help me. Instead, I just have to scroll. It's just makes it. The iPad, we can't do that. I could do it on my PC, but on the town iPad, you can't go to the bookmarks. I don't know if that's operator error. And Cody has to hold my hand through that, but I can't figure that out on this iPad.
Okay, so Department 820, the building inspection, you look at just the total, his proposed budget's actually a decrease of roughly 6% from fiscal 24's approved budget, or a decrease of $30,000. A couple line items on here, so you have the building inspector, which is an individual just started in that position, somebody is retired from there. So you see, we had an approved budget of 75,000. The salary for that individual going in for fiscal 2025 is budgeted, proposed at 62,000. So some savings there. The electrical inspector and plumbing mechanical inspector, you may recall last year was when those two individuals were rolled in as employees of the town. They're part-time individuals, so they're not receiving benefits. So we've adjusted that based on what the director has seen as their work, the number of hours per week projected out over the course of the year, salary or the hourly rates remaining the same. Another significant decrease just in the healthcare line item, again, based on the employees that are currently there and what benefits they're receiving. We have a decrease right now where we're projecting the cost to the town for a family healthcare plans roughly 19,000. It's high 18, so say 19,000. So that's where you'll see a decrease there. One item down in the operations, just to mention, is you'll see we have a line item we're including this year called well inspector. Budgeting that at $5,000. There will be an offset of that on the revenue side. The director felt they didn't need to show it as a separate line item because of the fact that we do charge for that inspection, and there's actually, a positive cash flow on those inspections. We don't pay out 100%. So although you see a $5,000 line item there, you'll see an offset on the revenue side and excess. So other than that, I think everything else is pretty much status quo.
Any comments, questions, discussion? Okay.
Next, we're gonna do engineering.
Again, in summary, the engineering budget, proposed budget by the director, roughly 304,000 versus 296,000 previous year. So projected increase of 7,300 or 2.5%. Again, some of that's just the increases projected. For salary increases is projected 2% increase in the compensation. Again, related healthcare and those costs. Just making a notation that if I have the right position, the engineering coordinator, right? Engineering coordinator, technician. We're making changes to some of the languages we've got. We'll get updated, but the engineering technician was a position that got budgeted for in fiscal 24. It didn't get filled until recently. So similar to what council member was just mentioning, but it is filled at this point. So the engineering department is operating at full capacity with the staff. helping to coordinate a lot of the items. You see, we do still have some professional services there, which I'll let the director talk more about that, but something that we feel is still needed, and that was previously put into engineering services. We just rolled it up into a professional service line to be more encompassing.
So I'd like to start off with the engineering technician position. So the position was filled on 11/13 of last year. We were able to cancel an ongoing contract that we had with Weston and Sampson, their O&M contract. So that started on March 1st. We started doing everything in-house, and we do have a cost savings on bringing that new person on. The O&M contract was in excess of $150,000 a year. So not only do we have the in-house person performing those same duties, we are able to utilize that person doing other tasks. So it's a win-win for the department and for the town. So the professional services, we have some contracts right now, construction contracts that are ongoing. So we have the annual MS4 report that we have a consultant prepare. We're also moving forward with stormwater improvements for Upper Dam Pond. We have Tioga Elementary, we have drainage improvements there. Green Farm Old North Road, we have a drainage project associated with that. And also the Lake George Drainage Improvement Project is ongoing. We're looking to wrap that up this summer. There's some, if you're wondering why it's taking so long, there's some restrictions from DEM on when we can work within water courses. So we actually can't start up again on that project until the summertime. So I need design funds for these projects and other projects that come up, and also construction support, shop drawing review, construction inspection, and so forth. And there was also some miscellaneous items down at the bottom. The office supplies, I lowered that because I wasn't using the full 500. I also lowered the dues and memberships by $50, and I increased the minor tools and equipment. There was some meters that I bought last year, and I'm probably going to need something similar this year. So I just need a little extra money to get those items.
Questions, discussion, members of the council? Councilor Shockley.
Just to make sure I'm understanding correctly, the contract that we had for the professional services was back in fiscal year 22. And then the next year, fiscal year 23, we hired, well, maybe we just didn't have anything budgeted for that year.
So
And then we hired in 24.
It was under, are you wondering why it went from engineering services?
No,
Professional?
I'm not wondering why the money moved. I'm just trying to make sure I'm understanding if that I'm right, that we had a gap year, I guess you could say. So we had a year where we didn't have the services contract or the engineer.
So I think that was for the engineering consultant, that extra money.
Like I said, though, there was a year without either. So for fiscal year 23, we didn't have the contract, which is under professional services, or the engineering coordinator.
The director, right? So you didn't have the engineer, you didn't have the coordinator, but in fiscal 22, you also didn't have a director.
Yep.
Like everything was being done by themselves. And then you budget the council budgeted for a director in fiscal 23, and reduced significantly engineer and consultant.
Yeah, because Joe started in the 22-23. There was no director, I guess, prior to that. It was just that
When did
engineering.
Bruce Hagerman come off the books?
That I don't know.
So I came on in June of 22. He was still on the books probably for 6 months after that, but only a few hours a week.
Okay.
I'd have to look, but it is possible some of those costs would be in charge of the enterprise fund.
It makes sense now that The director was what I was missing. I just was trying to figure out like, how did we not feel this savings at another point? So that makes sense. Thank you.
Any other comments, discussion?
Thanks.
All right, next we're gonna do planning. So it's gonna be planning, and Doug's got 4 or 5 other departments that are also kind of under his purview. So we'll get all those done together.
I'll let Doug jump right in because he's good at explaining everything.
This is my first budget. Our vision was pretty much to carry things forward as they were. The only major changes were staffing changes. We did increase the budgets for staff in the department, and I would note that those salaries were essentially their existing salaries. So when you see the difference between the approved fiscal year 2023 and then the proposed for 3 of the positions, namely the principal planner, the clerk for special duties, who also does the zoning enforcement, and then the clerk for clerk-planning technician, those 3 positions. There's an increase in salaries, but those are actually as they exist today.
Councilor Shockley.
So you seem to have an exceptionally large healthcare jump.
You'll have to excuse me. I don't know what the previous staff chose. I think that might have been a previous staff person chose a buyout option, and then they perhaps converted back to the newer staff that came in converted to taking the healthcare option.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, if you look at the healthcare waiver in the 2024 budget was 8,600. That's reduced down to 4,300 in the top section. So you had one person that's now getting family coverage, and from 4,300, that family coverage costs you roughly 19,000. So there's an increase of about 15,000 just there with one individual.
Okay, that makes sense. But we had also grossly under budgeted for it, for the waiver last year.
I'll have to look at the allocation for that. I'm thinking something's misposted. Yeah, I'll double check that.
When did the assistant planner start though, or the associate planner?
The associate, the new title is a principal planner. That person started in July.
Okay. And then we adjusted the salary before we hired for that. I see.
Exactly. Yeah.
After Mr. Studley left.
Yep.
And then you've got Josh, who I met the other day.
Yep.
who's
Josh
planning
Chase. So
technician.
and I would describe what we did with that position was essentially elevate it from really, here it's listed as clerk-planning technician. As far as we posted it as a planning technician, which is really more of a true planning position.
Mm-hmm.
When we did do that, we increased the budget a touch. And then Bob might be able to explain it better, but I think we advertised it in calendar year of 23. Josh was brought in January of 24, but he was subject to some increases because of he's a union position. He actually had union increases coming in because it was a position that was established, and we established a salary in 23. So Bob might be able to explain it better, but his number is basically, it was a moderate increase. And then because it's a union position, that moderate increase had some compounding effects as it entered calendar year 24.
Anything further? All right.
Great. Thanks. Yeah. Actually, for sure.
Sorry, planning commission is the same. Doug will stay if we have any questions. So that budget really has not changed. Zoning Board of Review
Yeah.
is Doug's.
That's the only board that ended up with an increase.
Yes.
It ended up with an increase in order to accommodate the need for a stenographer at every meeting. That I think is it's an improvement to our record keeping capacities. It's the zoning board is, although I think the amount of business they're doing is generally getting smaller, there can still be complex issues that are subject to appeal. We certainly are experiencing them right now. And it was something that legal actually advised was good practice. It's practice that I've seen in every community that I've worked in, is having a zoning board have a stenographer. If there's issues and people aren't happy, you really want to have a strong record.
And then conservation staying the same.
Yep. The only other budget that I think is experiencing a change is the Historic District Commission, which is a decrease. They had a higher budget
grant,
in a
yeah.
specific fiscal year to help them accomplish a grant activity. They were actually using a portion of their budget to help with a match on a grant that they were working on.
Yeah.
So we basically readjusted that back down.
Members of the council, any questions, comments? Okay.
Great.
Can you go now?
Yes, you can go
Okay.
now.
Oh, good. Yeah, when you
Dismiss.
said stick around, I was like, until the end of the night, what are we doing?
I know your daughters want to see you.
Doug, I'll leave with you.
Kevin, come on down. So as you guys know, Kevin incorporates roads and bridges, vehicle maintenance, building maintenance, snow operations. So he's going to cover all of those departments. He has one of the larger asks as we continue to try to move forward with our Pave It Forward program. We do want to get more roads paved, more sidewalks completed. We're also asking Kevin to do more with the sanitation truck that we just purchased. So he is asking for additional resources regarding manpower for those additional tasks, but I will let him summarize.
Can I ask right up front, does the ask for roads and the road paving and sidewalks assume the ARPA support that we talked about in the program? Because we had said we'd use like 3 years of ARPA funds and to slowly ramp. Is that using that assumption or no?
So we've not identified opera for this year yet. So he actually put it in his budget.
Just baked it in?
Yes, he baked it into his budget right now, which we'd like to see happen in some capacity, maybe not at the number it's at right
I
now.
just wanted to verify
but
that.
Correct, yeah. So we have not identified opera funding as something the councils are really gonna have to do a deep dive into, because it all has to be appropriated by this December.
Mhm.
We got only $2.5 to $3 million left.
How
So
much
yeah,
did we use this year? We used full ARPA.
yes, I don't know what that number is on the top of my head.
I think no, that was including what we got from the state. So it was really like we were $1.2 million, I think. So the thought was full ARPA the first year, $500,000 the second year, and then by the third year it should be baked in. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we ended up doing $1 million up front for opera. Then we did the match with the state, which
Yep.
is another 600,000, I believe. So I think it was around 1.6 opera ballpark
Okay.
for paving.
Yeah, so just quick before he starts, I did leave in front of each of your seat this evening, some adjusted DPW sheets going as we were reviewing this, and the director took a look and went through some of it this weekend, and I guess there's been a few different versions, and I didn't have his most recent version in the packet that went to you folks all on Friday. So what you have in front of you is just the revised first 2 pages, and then you could see each of his departments that he's gonna go through right now as he prepared and Again, it would be updated in the final report that you'll get.
Thank you, Mr. Savetti. Before we start with the actual numbers, I just want to took the time to give a little background of how the town has grown and how DPW hasn't, and what services we've been doing. From 2000 to 2024, roads and bridges employees have not grown beyond 24 employees. Sanitation employees have increased 1 employee, and that was the recycling coordinator. Households have risen to 12,363. And during that period, 15 subdivisions have been built, 385 homes added, a 31% growth in 24 years. Our plow routes have increased from 16 in 2000 to 25 in 2024. Storm drainage catch basins have been doubled from 1150 in 2000 to 2,475 in 2024. The service we provided the same staff as street sweeping, which we used to contract out half. We are now doing it totally in-house. Snow plowing currently is done totally in-house with no contractors. Asphalt patching, brush cutting, catch basin cleaning, which we used to have a vendor do that. We've now done it with a vac truck. We are able now to start coordinating neighborhoods that we can actually jet out the drainage lines, which was not done before. It was only in an emergency. Detention pond maintenance. That's, I didn't want to, I hope I didn't scare her. Those are how I want to start off. And if there's any questions you folks might have on the roads and bridges divisions first, as indicated, we did ask for the 1 million for roads and 500,000 for sidewalks, which would, when we did our street management program, at the same time, they also did sidewalks and curbing. So at 500,000, I would like to at least be able to start allocating 100,000 per neighborhood, per council district, to put into the neighborhoods and get that started. We've asked for increase in the contracted services, and that increase is only, last year we did 30,000, and the council decided to take 30,000 out of opera. I've put it back totally this year in the contracted services without opera funding if the council decides to go back to opera funding again. And that's something we'll be doing in the springtime. We've already been contacting, getting ready to go out to an RFI for that. The cemetery maintenance, the contract, the RFI just went out. We came back and it was going to be coming before the town council at their next council meeting. That went from basically 49,000 up to 71,694, and we had 2 bidders for that. And that includes the monthly maintenance, spring cleanup. It includes a fall cleanup, and also two services, which is on call, and only we have the time of summer we had last year where we had rain every week. That was causing the cemeteries to grow faster. We would then utilize one of those special cuttings, and that's coming before the council. The resolution's just about drawn up now, ready for the April 9th meeting. Here, what I had submitted under the capital leases included the 190,000 for the sanitation trucks, which, speaking to Mr. Savetti and Mr. Perlo, we were willing to take that out and take that right out of their sanitation line item, put a capital lease line there for them. And then, as was brought up at several meetings, there was a question about technology as far as having an on-call service to be able to, instead of doing paper and pen, we have a computer system that was set up for all services that we're providing. Being able to have a call center for residents to be able to call in on a 311 for services, and also to be able to do on-site inspections, being able to write a report, take pictures, and send them out right from the field and get them back to the office. That's something we're looking to put that in place. And also, we put in there for the OpenGov licensing, which people will be able to do everything that they do right now at the window. They'll be able to do it online and be able to pay for their services at that point. Something we talked with Cody. We met with the representative online and told us what it would cost to do it. So I've included that in the budget in order to be able to put that online come July 1. We've also asked, based upon that, what we discussed, we asked for additional manpower and woman power. We've asked for an additional crew, two drivers and one operator, which is a crew. We keep taking people to do these additional services, and we have additional work that needs to be done, and we don't have the people to do that. So we're asking. And we're just asking for the labor hours so that we can actually, do some of these items that we're hoping to do. We can plan on it and have projects that we want to do, but without having the people to do it, it's impossible to get it done on a constant basis. We're not in. If there's any questions on Division 830, which is roads and bridges.
Vice President LeBlanc.
More so for the manager. I don't know about the million for the paving and the 500 for sidewalks all at once in this year. I think that's a bit much.
Councilmember Shockley.
I want to just bring something up that we talked about in the past that's kind of related to what you're saying. A few months ago, we had ARPA, kind of gung ho. We want to get these roads done. There's state money coming in. And now we're looking at it and it's like, looking at what's coming forth, that's too much. And it makes me think of the idea of using our general fund instead of taking out a loan for larger things like trucks and that we talked about before. Because my concern is we'll use that with the full intent of paying it back. And then we'll get to a budget year and be like, we don't really owe it. And then we won't be paying back our general fund and keeping the level of revenue that we require in order to have our bonding capacity and get our ratings. And so it's just something that's kind of related to this, just saying it sounds like a great idea that instead of getting a loan for something, we would simply borrow from ourselves. But there's that fear that even if the same council were to be in place a year or 2 or 3 down the road, they'd decide not to pay it back. So just something I want to put out there as we think about things in the future.
And I totally agree. There was comments by the council that they wanted to continue the roads project farther than the ARPA. So we put a placeholder in here on what was discussed, roughly $200,000 per district for roads and $100,000 for sidewalks. And that's why you get to the 1.5. That doesn't go very far. When you talk about $200,000, I've got roads that I'm looking at now that are in excess of $200,000 and do one road. So it doesn't mean that a lot's going to get done, but we started and it's great. We're moving forward on this springtime. We'll be starting in a couple of weeks with the change order for the state funding. We will be completing that and hopefully get into the schedule for 2024-25 with the funding that you folks allow, whether it be ARPA or whether it be. That's why the placeholder was put in there so that we can at least be thinking about. We should be looking at, as much as it is to put gas and oil in the vehicles, if you want the roads to continue. We're getting a lot of good responses from people. When are my roads going to get done? And I explained to them how we're doing the system with the Street Logic program that is based upon the conditions and whether or not the type of roads they are, whether they're an arterial collector road or not. So we're getting to that point to move forward. I'm only presenting you a budget that I believe is what we need to bring the services to what the people in this town expect. It's difficult for us to be able to provide all those services without the manpower or the funding. So that's all based upon what we're looking at.
I'm sorry if I missed it, but can you break out the cost of 311 versus OpenGov to digitize your services?
It's all part of one package. I'm
Oh.
sorry, OpenGov is for people to be able to do the 311.
What's the cost of that by itself?
That by itself.
I thought I wasn't. Is it all grouped under?
Yeah, OpenGov is not for people to call in. That's just for people to take.
No. I'm asking, what's the cost? What's the all-in cost? Because I'm sure there's implementation costs included for 311. And then what's the cost to get the OpenGov piece up and running?
Okay, the Open Gov is 6,500. And the service for the. Yeah. 35,410. And
So,
that,
okay, so technology products and services line is all 311.
correct, and that's also active assessment for assets and for job performance and reporting. And that includes the purchase of tablets for the foremen that go out to do this.
What's the cost of that line going forward? Is this
Oh,
only
that's-
gonna be this amount
No.
this year, or what is it?
That's.
I remember you presenting this as an ARPA request, but I just don't remember what the cost was each year after.
The cost after that is $4,000 per year.
So it's this upfront and then $4,000.
Correct, to get it all set up.
What? Okay.
Are there any questions for Division 830 Roads and Bridges?
I don't think so.
Okay, the next one is 840, which is snow removal. We had a situation this year that we had to get through. Luckily, the storms were not of great intensity, but they were in frequency. That we had upwards of 9 to 11 trucks that were down at any one time, not having the ability to bring anybody put into them. So the discussion with the town manager was that we need to think about bringing on some contractors, that they would be assigned some routes and be able to do those, release some of the burden that the trucks that we have now with the 25 routes that we have, that we would have those 4 trucks to be able to utilize as backups as anything goes down, because the fleet is not all the newest.
Is that the snow removal temporary services?
Correct. And that is something new. We increased the salt line to 200,000. We have utilized, based upon our operations reports, as of this date, we are at 192,600. And we still have a bill coming from the state at 102's Salt Barn for the western end. They bill us on an annual basis, so we haven't gotten that bill yet. But we're just going to be about that 200,000. That's why we requested that.
Whatever happened to doing a salt and sand rollover? Like, I know we've talked about it. Is that another resolution we do like we did with the others? But that seems to make sense.
We had that conversation during our budget hearing for that, and also some of the other items that we have, the asphalt studies and the stormwater work, to have that all roll over, because some of these projects come in larger than what we have allocated on an annual basis.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is it something is that a heavy lift? Is that something that can be done?
You know, we could certainly put something together.
Yeah.
You know, just looking at where he's at. So right now, you know, they show through January 31st, but then obviously we've had some storms in February and the end of January where those bills carried over. So there wouldn't be any excess.
No, but
budget
I'm
this fiscal year, but certainly.
But I mean, if you look at 23, it's, 40 grand is no chump change to roll over. I mean, every little bit helps.
Absolutely. But we can't tell year to year whether it's going to have a surplus or we're going to be over. So
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
that
but
would help, definitely.
yeah. But I imagine a rollover over time would add up.
Absolutely.
I would like to know, get an updated version of this, just because of the fact that most of our winter storms happened since this was made, to really see how much of our budget we utilized.
Salt?
This doesn't, well, salt, and even
Yeah.
overtime
Every week.
expenses.
Every week I print out an operations report as of today, that number I gave you for the salt use to date of $192,595 is what we've used And we only have $17,000 left in the account. So depending on what that bill from RIDOT is for the 4 trucks that work out of that salt dome west of 102 and the ones just east of 102. We'll be right at that 200,000. And I can provide this to you at any time. Like I said, every Monday I print this out so I know exactly where we are in our budgets.
Any other comments, questions on snow removal?
The next division is our facilities building maintenance department. To start off with, right off the bat, there was an error in computing this. Custodian cost share should have been 47,061. For some reason, it doubled it to 94,951. So please disregard that. It should be at 47,061. Yeah, underlying, I don't know if you underline that, but on a custodian cost share, it duplicated it for some reasons. And we didn't catch it until after it was submitted. Our custodian line item has increased this year because we're consolidating the police and human services custodians in line under this department. So we'll be paying for the custodians' needs for payroll. And it will also act as a backup to them because it's all to be under one umbrella. That if somebody's out, one of our custodians can step in for them. The same thing to help them with day-to-day. That decision was made farther up the food chain, and we're fine.
Yeah, that was part of the performance audit that you guys paid for a couple of years ago. That was one of the suggestions, was to incorporate the building maintenance personnel there under DPW. So that's what we did.
All the other line items are minuscule as far as start dates and times. The only item that actually rose a little bit more than expected was under the repairs and maintenance for the annex building. We have that at 76,875 based upon where we are. And there's been some mechanical issues with some of the pumps that we've had to replace. And the discussion during our hearing was reducing that back down to 50,000 possibly, and anything additional going over, because right now the school is not paying anything for any of those expenses. So hopefully pushing that over to them so they can put that under their repairs to maintenance. Yes, ma'am.
And this is all outside of what the governor's grant is going to be doing because of all the different maintenance they're going to be doing to that
Yeah.
building?
That area that's going to happen with is actually in the northeast corner of the building, which has minimal heat and there's no air conditioning, just heat to keep it at a minimum temperature. This is nothing to do with that. Those are basically going to be running the rest of the building from the school side to where zoning is, to where planning is, and in the middle where the small piece, the auditorium, gymnasium, those are all what's part of what we're dealing with now. It's only that northeast corner, that 30 out of 105,000 square feet, at 38,000 square feet in the northeast corner is the majority of where the work's being done, which is not much of the HVAC that we're spending money.
Anything further on building maintenance? All right.
The next one would be sanitation. The numbers here are basically what we have spoken about in our hearings about the decision to keep sanitation. The only addition here would be the capital lease line, the $190,000 for having a line inserted here rather than under 830.
That was under Department 830 is where Kevin included.
Gotcha.
During our meeting. So we should just put it on the record.
Any questions?
Councilor Shockley.
We had discussed, hiring someone who could better maintain the vehicles, as part of our discussion. I don't know if that's included in this budget.
Yeah. We looked into additional training as far as having certifications completed. And that's, the only certifications are in Connecticut, the closest one. And they would have to go to school during the day. We'd be paying them to go to school during the day to get certifications for a year. So it does not show that we have the funds that have somebody here to take care of the vehicles and also go to school to get certified. What I did do in the 880, which is vehicle maintenance, I added additional funding so that I could send them out to individual schools to get them trained on certain aspects of vehicles, especially with some of the newer technologies. I also included some money for some of the newer minor tools so that they could actually have the tools that they need with the newer type of trucks that we have. So I don't have the money in here to hire another company. We've looked at some companies that come in as advisors and consultants. But again, we're looking at everyone from $60,000 to $75,000 for a year to do that. I didn't think there would be an appetite to add an additional person for a consultant. I'd rather train them and give them the tools they need so that we own them longer term, because there's nothing stopping them from getting certified. We spend the money to get them certified. And then they go to someplace making $10,000.
I agree with you 100% on that part. I am concerned about having these very, very expensive vehicles that we fix in-house and not having the personnel on staff who knows how to do it.
We've already had some classes, and I have the company that makes like sanitation trucks that makes them. I've had them come in for a day, $2,000 to give them training on certain aspects of that vehicle, and it's helped. They've actually been able to utilize that and be able to have somebody they can call and talk to bounce the questions off of them to get it done. It's not going to happen overnight, but we are prepared to go forward with training, whether it be on Mack trucks, whether it be on some of the equipment. They have the experience on 75% of the vehicles that we have. The further we can train them on the specialty items coming in and getting the computer programs so that we can do diagnostics and having the diagnostic tools for them to be able to utilize. That's where we're falling short, and that's what I'm trying to do with adding money to the budget for that. Not a lot. It's like $10,000.
Yeah, so I think it's definitely a balancing act. We're trying to figure out how to be able to service these vehicles better. Is it bringing someone in from the outside at that $75,000 salary in a non-union position to supervise, or is it trying to staff those 3 other positions that Kevin wants and bring the training to these guys like Kevin's trying to do now? So I don't think fiscally we can do both. Have another crew and hire this, if you want to say, supervisor of vehicle maintenance who has all these certifications. I think the goal we've decided is hopefully get the additional crew, and then bring the service providers and technicians in and train our current staff with that skill set. So we could go in the other direction of bringing someone in, but I don't know if that's the best solution in the long term.
No, I really don't know either. I just am looking at how much money we're spending on repair and parts, and I want to make sure that we have the best skilled people we can to take care of these vehicles. They're not, it's not like spending Sunday in your garage.
And once again, I've been authorizing them to work some Saturdays to try to get caught up during this time that we had a lot of vehicles down. It's important to note that investing in our people, investing in the tools that they need will increase the productivity and allow them to be able to perform what we need. The newer trucks that are going to come in are going to give them more time to be able to take a vehicle off the road and be able to go through it totally. We currently have one of the sanitation trucks. They're rebuilding the hydraulic ram itself. We had the company that built them, Labrie, come down and look at it and say, what the hell are you guys doing? Nobody does this. They send it to us and you guys are doing it yourselves. This is the 6th one that we've done. And it's in there now being done. They have the ability, they just need the tools and they need the backup on it. And that's what we're trying to give them. But that's in vehicle maintenance. That's not here in this.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, are you considering 870 as part of our discussion here as well?
870
In terms of
is the next division, right?
So with that one, if the waste yard you're talking about is built, what kind of fiscal impact can we expect to see on the disposal piece? Like how much can we save if we make this the composting materials yard?
Yeah. Well, it's gonna, right now, let me just back a half a step forward. One of the other things I think.
Back a half a step forward?
Let me back up a half step and go forward.
You can't laugh or talk, Johnson.
The transfer station changes that we discussed during the hearings regarding sanitation is important. That's going to reduce the amount of wear and tear on the vehicles going up on the hill at the landfill and only having one vehicle traveling. We're putting that all together. We have a bid opening this week on the containers, and we'll be able to come to you with what that cost is going to be for purchasing out the compactor that's here and also buying the containers that we need to be able to do that. And we'll be coming to that in April, and hopefully that can work. Going back to what you're indicating, when we are authorized to go forward with the municipal facility, we're going to be able to save again, all those tons, 2,000 tons of yard waste that's hauled to the resource recovery and bringing it here in town. It's going to reduce on the wear and tear on tires. It's going to, wear and tear on going up into the facility, everything that we can do. And then we'll have a product here that we can give back to the residents, and rather than paying to get rid of it.
What's our cost per ton right now to dispose?
We're allocated up to 800, I believe, and 75 tons at no cost, but we still have to pick it up and transport it there.
Yeah.
And then the difference cost us $25 per ton. So you're looking at 1,200 tons at $25 that we have to pay to dispose of. Plus those tons also have to become, we have to pay to transport. Now we're going to save that transport from going to resource recovery to, to the local facility. And that's going to save us time and money also. Is it going to happen overnight? This is not going to be, no, this is something that's going to take several years to get into place. And in the 5 years, we will then have it where the yard waste cost will be reduced to a point where we're saving money on beyond what the allocation is.
I don't understand why we wouldn't see savings immediately if we're not taking that yard waste up to.
You will, but you won't be able to pay for it totally. We won't be able to eliminate the yard waste component.
Oh, no, I'm not looking for
Okay,
it to.
that's what
I'm
you're
just,
asking for.
I,
Absolutely.
because
And time.
when we're considering whether or not to make that investment in the facility, we have to look out at the ROI over the course of however many years.
And that'll be part of the presentation.
Yeah. Anything else on refuse disposal?
Any questions on the increasing disposal cost? Contractual.
Resource recovery,
Yep.
they love it. It's, at least it's not the 80 grand it was 2 years ago. That was painful.
Yes, it was. And the last division is vehicle maintenance. Excuse me, the only new line item here is for under chemicals. We reduced chemicals by the line item that we increased what they call the DEF fluid. That's the diesel emissions fluid. And that's the new 207, excuse me, the new 750 gallon disposal we have at the fuel station. So they are now, we're able to buy it at a reduced price because of we're buying it in quantity rather than the 275 gallon totes. So we just wanted to separate out the DEF fluid itself so we know exactly where we are with the DEF fluid as opposed to the other chemicals, you know, antifreeze and items like that we would buy in that other line item. My next. Yep. Again, before we get to that, we increased the fuel, the auto gas and lube line item based upon where we are today. As currently, we have a budget line item of $350,000 for auto gas and lube, and we've used to date 340,000, and we have just $9,860 left in that line item. Although we are going to get some internal credits from other departments that total near 50,000, we're spending about $10,000 a week for gas and diesel. And that includes for the police department and all the other departments that use this station. So that's one of the items that we increase that line item because of where we are, believing that we're not going to, I don't want to go over that line item at all. The other item is truck repairs. Truck repair increased in our request by $20,000 because the backline trucks that we use are getting older. They're in that 15 to 20-year range. And again, we can't get this one truck that's been in our garage right now for 2 months. They don't make the part anymore. We're trying to find a part on the country on somebody that's going to use one. And it's one of our trucks that we would use to do a Reed Schoolhouse Road that we can't use right now. And the only problem is there's one hose. So we're looking at working with different companies to try to manufacture that piece because we can't use the truck without it. So that's happening more and more because of the older trucks. They're just not having the parts available. We're still dealing with the post-pandemic shortages of materials and supplies. They're still being held up and taking time to get to us, which increases the freight and demurrage cost, which is what it costs us to get those parts. And you'll see our welding line item is higher this proposed coming year because we're fixing more and more of these items that have to be welded. The sanitation repairs, I brought it to 260,000 for this coming year. Currently, and this again, we still have more than 1 quarter left in the year. The sanitation to date, we've spent $237,000, $107,000 over budget, and we still have another quarter to go. So we still have to keep those trucks running until the other ones come in. So I wish I had that magic bullet so we order the new trucks, we can eliminate some of that cost. Until those trucks come here and we receive them, we still have to keep these going. So I'm not anticipating a big savings on those vehicles going forward. If we make some of the changes that we're talking about, the transfer station and being able to utilize the reduced wear and tear, we may in fact see that reduced down less. I prefer to budget it and not use it than have to go over budget and try to find out where the hell we're going to pay for it.
Councilmember Shockley.
So all these costs on sanitation, all the overages, those were the numbers that we factored in when deciding to keep it in-house, right?
Oh, yeah.
The actual costs that we had, not the budget.
Anything else on vehicle maintenance?
Wow.
Was that the finale for you?
That's it for me. That's more than enough. Thank you.
Okay.
I know.
Hello, council.
Let me hear it.
Okay.
Go for it.
All right, so this current fiscal year, approximately $160,000 came from ARPA funding. And that does not include any capital outlay. So those include decorations for the holidays, court fillings for basketball hard surface courts, field trips for our camps, and as well as busing for throughout the year, including camps, and instructor services, which are our fitness, STEM, other programs, as well as rental equipment for events such as sound, stage. So we did put that money back into the operating budget, approximately $160,000. The good news is we have approximately $60,000 of that ARPA funding that wasn't spent because we didn't have our community center to run certain programs or we did more fundraising. So the good news is that we have some of those funds in ARPA. If you choose to use that again, moving forward for certain items, it's still there. And let's see what else. So you'll notice that in the seasonal maintenance staff, it's approximately $17,000. Our park foreman is retiring. So we were hoping to get someone a temporary position in there because he has a lot of vacation time and want to have enough time to train someone, see if they actually want to go in the position full time. So I did add that. We can look into reducing that a little bit as well. Let's see what else. You'll notice that in our temporary employees, it actually is less than what we were asking for last year. We did restructuring of our basketball programs and our camp programs. So that was very helpful as well. So for our sanitary facilities, it's also less than last year. We put the porta johns that were actually going for our events in the special events section this year. And let's see what else. The same with rental equipment for special events. And again, so property maintenance is higher because this current fiscal year, we put the court filling, the hard surface courts in ARPA funding, but we put it back into property maintenance this upcoming fiscal year. That's a yearly cost. And as we get more grants and we start to redo the courts, obviously that would get less over time.
So is that 36 a full jump? Was the 20 supplemented by ARPA last year or?
So the 20 was something just for our general property maintenance that we have every year.
Okay.
And the 16 is the additional that we got from ARPA for this year, current fiscal year, that we
Okay.
need in the future, in the upcoming fiscal year.
Got it.
Yeah. Let's see what else. The equipment repair parts, it's just slightly higher. Just our aging mowers, blowers, trimmers, they're just getting older and we need to start replacing them over the years. We increase vehicle truck repair parts, and when I go into like what equipment we need, what vehicles we need, that might be able to be modified a little bit. But we add a little bit more because our dump is falling apart. We got it used from somewhere else. The fluids keep leaking, the brakes keep going. It just costs a lot to maintain, and it's pretty much our workhorse. So you'll see later on, we are asking to either purchase or lease another $550 and get rid of that one. So the leases, we did not include them. The current 2 trucks we have, we did not include them in the budget last year, But there are 2 trucks, and that is 19,506 a year just to lease those 2 vehicles. And then, let's see what else. Again, entertainment, looks like a big difference, but it's in special events or different categories. What we essentially did is everything kind of clumped together and we separated out to make more sense to keep track of the budget. And then professional services, that looks new. So that's the refs for our summer basketball league. Before, they were actually in temp staff, but we thought it'd be best to put them in professional services, again, so we can track more clearly what we spend money on. And then you'll see quite a jump in the construction and production equipment. So we essentially need a F-550 landscape dump with hydraulic gate. Now I spoke to the E-fleets, enterprise E-fleets. They said it'd be approximately $1,700 a month or $20,000 a year just for that vehicle. Or we can purchase one for approximately $90,000. Our next ask is for a cargo van. You can lease it for $1,000 a month or essentially buy one outright for $48,000. Again, we put fertilizers, like different equipment in the van. It is for maintenance. It's not a passenger van. Again, the priority would be the 550 and then the van. And the next would be just a vehicle for the recreation department. We bought a used one years ago. Doesn't have air conditioning. The check engine light is always on. And that was a $2,000 purchase like 6 years ago. It would be nice because we have camps and we try to offer education in different locations, and we have programs now at the annex and other areas. So again, not as a priority as the F-550, the dump, but again, it would be nice to have. I mean, that would be $600 a month for a lease. But again, my priority would be the F-550 for working purposes. And you also notice that advertising went up a little bit. We did add an electronic scoreboard. That was quite extensive, costly at over $10,000. Again, that's something maybe we can look for fundraising on. So I'd be okay with that as well. And let's see what else. A big ask would also be the drug med supplies. So you'll see there was approximately 11. So I asked for quite a bit more money. So the AEDs need replaced within the next few years. So I thought it would, I am actually asking to reduce it. We can actually add maybe 1 or 2 a year to reduce costs. And they're approximately $2,500. I can get you that exact amount. I have it somewhere here. Let's see. They're actually $1,850. So if we're able to just buy one, we can reduce one this year and maybe 2 next year. We can reduce the cost on that line and by over $11,000. But again, it does need to slowly be replaced with our programs. It's a safety matter. And other than that, it's pretty straightforward.
I have a question.
Sure.
So bear with me, I have a list here.
Okay.
So in terms of the big asks and where we're trying to bake back in some of the programming pieces. So I had noted field trips, ticketed events / trips, advertising, bus rental, instructional services, and drug medicine supplies.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Did you say that was for the ARPA? Because most of those were ARPA that you mentioned.
Yeah. Yep. So my question to you is, if the council elected to strategically use some ARPA funds to continue to ramp back those items in, which ones would you prefer to be baked in this year and which?
I mean, since like it's one-time expenses, maybe ARPA would be good for the AEDs because they're not
Drugs and medicine.
reoccurring. However, like busing, field trips, those are all instructor services. Those are all reoccurring. So maybe that wouldn't be best for the ARPA funding. Rental equipment. Well, that's now in special events, so that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The field trips is just, that's a huge, the 30K can add up, and then
Right. So
ticketed
since-
events, that's like almost a 20K jump.
Yeah, I mean, again, that is reoccurring. or
Oh, I know. I'm not
or-
saying,
Yeah.
I'm not saying the whole thing. I'm
Right.
saying,
Part of it, but we do have some left over because like we always have to plan for the most, right? In case we have the
Right.
money. But we did have a little bit of leftover money. Just because honestly, if there's like 2 less students, we don't have to use 2 buses. We can fit them all in 1 bus.
yeah.
So that makes a difference. So for example, for the bus rental, we do have like a little over 20,000 left in that. So that would be good, depending on what you want to do. Put it towards either bus rental again, or maybe put it towards court fillings or something like that for 16,000. I just don't want to come to you next year and see like we're asking for a big amount of money again because it was.
No. Again, I'm not saying totally fund the item.
Yeah.
I'm just saying in terms of helping to continue to ramp back up, because I mean, we all know you were decimated in 2020.
Yeah.
By over $500,000.
And
So
you can put them in the same categories as they were. So it was for instructor services, field trips, and bus rental. So if you want to continue those line items with the leftover ARPA funds, that's a possibility.
yeah.
I think we haven't touched the opera funding yet, but I think we should stay away from the smaller things for opera and stick more towards the trucks, the bigger items, the vehicles, as opposed to busing and advertising and other things like that. I just don't want to have an issue at the end when we get audited as to the proper use of that. And I just don't know if that was the intent of that money. I just think it's clearer and neater if you're doing larger items with opera funding.
I totally get it. I agree with you, but if it's the difference between asking for a max 4% levy increase and chipping away across the board to get us down to a 3.5 or even a 3, that to me is worth it.
True, and I'd like to spin that if we could, if use the opera funds maybe in lieu of capital, put the money in for what Raina's asking for, and then maybe either through capital or opera, we can kind of get the bigger ticketed items covered and cover their stuff more with general fund
Yeah,
money. But
yeah.
I mean, the truck would be an excellent example of that.
Vice President Blank.
I was gonna say, I think you said the 550 4 or 5 times. That was like your priority. I would think that I heard that one. I heard that one loud and clear. And I think you said that was like about 90K. So that's like,
Yeah.
that it's a one-time expense, at least for like 5 years. You made a $2,000 purchase last 6. So I think you could make a 90,000 probably last maybe more than that. So I want to throw that out there. One thing I didn't hear you talk about, and maybe I missed it, was I know last year was a big item, was like a community day where we had fireworks. And did you touch on that?
So that's now in special events. We put
Oh,
all
okay.
special events in special events.
Oh, I just wanted to make sure because I felt like the community really appreciated the fireworks and the concert. So I just wanted to
Yeah.
try to make sure that that was still in our budget.
Special events are in the budget as well. Yeah, and some extra ones. for community.
Councilmember Shockley.
So I totally agree. I've seen all over Facebook, people sharing the post about this year's event coming up, which is exciting to see people happy about town events.
Mhm.
I guess I just want to get a better understanding, just because your department is one of the few that has a revenue stream outside of the tax base. So is this what would be part of the tax base? And there are other expenses that would be part of the, like something like field trips. Well, those are paid for.
So before it was almost, wasn't necessarily in the operating budget.
Yep.
But we decided to put everything in operating budget. So, which is good. We're still utilizing the same way. So when we recoup those funds from field trips, it goes back into the operating fund. So like many other items.
So
yeah.
these are all the expenses
Mhm.
for the department.
Mhm.
They're currently working on their revenue projections. So based on some of the increases for the instructors and different programs, they're looking to see what their gross revenue would be. So you're gonna see it at gross. You have the
Yeah.
total expense, you'll see a gross revenue.
So when we do our final, we try to consider our final levy, we'll take revenue we expect from these events, subtract it from these totals, and then get the levy from there. So, that's just another reason why some of these, because they have a revenue stream offsetting them, leaving them in the budget, because we can match those things up. I like that everyone's looking at little ways though that we can help with different funding sources. So just curious about that number once we get there and how it might help us with what we need to cut from this budget.
Absolutely. One thing that's been in my mind, this is for Director Savetti. You had mentioned that right now, with everybody's wish list, it's looking like a 9+% levy, but our packets say 6 and change. Can you help me bridge the gap? Just sorry.
Yeah,
if I
again,
missed
the
that.
6% roughly was
We, yeah.
6.7% increase. That's a percentage increase over the budget. Just looking at the bottom line budget this year versus fiscal 25 projected versus 24. But then we have to say, okay, if that entire increase has to come from taxes, and I don't know if you've all received, but our total tax levy for the current fiscal year we're in, the net tax levy was roughly 78.7 million. So you say if you need to raise all of that increase off of the levy, it's almost an increase of 10% strictly on the levy. Now, we understand that there's additional state aid coming in for education based on the proposed governor's budget, some increase in fees that we're anticipating from the rec department. So some of that would come down. This was just said, if all of our other revenue was staying exactly where it was budgeted in fiscal 24, what would we have to raise taxes by? So that's,
Okay.
again, total worst case scenario. We don't anticipate that, but that's just saying a 7 point something increase represents currently roughly 9.9% of our levy for the last fiscal year.
Anything else for Parks and Recreation? All right, thank you.
You're the guy with the gun. You have to be the calmest guy in the room.
Oh, my hip.
So again, like with DPW, as you know, there's various departments under the police department. So the chief and Therese will go through some of those items, but you can see at the bottom, again, the bottom of each sheet, what we're projecting or where they're at, and the chief can get in a little bit about the current, obviously, staffing. There's been down some offices where we anticipate on being, and that's still the final portion, when we met with the town manager and the chief, looking at what they are budgeting and then additional adjustments that we'll be making this week to get ready for the budget that you'll receive next week with the town managers, trying to find that balance as council, vice chair, mentioned trying to say when we're anticipating on hiring and filling those positions. So we'll have that figure.
Thank you. So if you don't mind, I could go through our current staffing, just to give you an idea of where we're at. We currently have 50 full-time police officer staff. We have 14 full-time civilian staff and 6 part-time civilian staff. The part-time staff is our EMA assistant. That's on a 50-50 EMPG grant. And we have 5 crossing guards. Those were considered our part-time. As far as the budget goes, the budget was prepared, staffed at 57. That was for up to the last half of the year. Currently, as we are now, like I said, we're at 50. What we're hoping to get is, say, 3 in the next academy. And then additional 4 in the following academy and 2 laterals. In April, we should have another lateral. So that would bring the numbers up to maybe 55 by the end of the current or upcoming budget year. So we're working with the town manager and finance director to try and make some adjustments on the budget as we have presented it.
Sorry, I was chewing. Did you ask a question?
I'm sorry?
Oh, he paused and just looked. Oh, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
it's-
Councilor Shockley.
I do think he paused for effect, to tell you the truth. So you said in the next 2 academies, which is what? How many?
We have an August academy and then we'll have a January academy in this budget year.
Okay.
upcoming Budget year.
So in the course of this year, you expect to have 55 officers.
Again, that's.
Not for the full year, but that's your hope, is that for
that's
most
best-
of the
best
year?
case Scenario, 55.
Mhm. How
That's
many are
just-
included in this budget?
This is currently budgeted at 57.
Okay. So even best case scenario, you expect 4 of those people to only be half the year.
Correct.
Okay. So that's 2 extra people plus 4 half people. Okay. Cutting no one in half. My other question on just the department part of the budget is you seem to budget every year a lot for retirement coverage payouts. Not that I don't want it to be there, but it looks like you over budgeted by $100,000 for fiscal year 23. And I don't know if someone's planning on leaving in the next couple of months, but over $100,000 for fiscal year 24 as well. Over what you required. So I'm guessing there's a point at which you, for the most part, could be pretty certain someone's going to retire. Do you have anyone who at this moment is intending on retiring in fiscal year 25?
So we should have 1 person retiring in March of this year. In the next budget year, there's 5 people eligible to retire that are have full retirement years.
Is that how we budget? We say this many people are eligible and we're planning for it. It's just $100,000 in this budget. A lot of money.
So this accounts for if 3 people retire, that amount of money for payout.
Is that an expectation? You said you
I
have
would
5 or
expect-
6 that could, but
I would expect to see at least 1 retire, at least 1, 2 retirements. And again, if you don't have the money in it, the money has to come from somewhere.
We don't have officers like by a certain deadline have to state an intention to retire. So that way we can budget for it accordingly. It's just whenever they want. Okay.
Whenever they want.
Okay.
usually there's signs. Which someone's going to retire. You know, they're talking to HR, they're figuring some stuff out, they're using up some sick time. Like, I just wasn't sure based on just being a small precinct, if you might be relatively certain on the number you might have.
Are the increases we're seeing for things like computers and computer equipment, auto repair parts, motor vehicles, is that separate from any of what the CDS went to? We got about 700 grand.
Yeah, 707.
So so these increases are on top of or what's already being paid from 700?
Yeah, so the 700 is, I think 350 of that is new radios. There's 1 or 2 vehicles, I think it's a SRT vehicle. I think most of these budgetary costs are not going to be covered by the grant. That's above and beyond.
Okay.
So the grant was a K9 vehicle was one of them, and then there were 2 admin vehicles. And then the 360,000 in portable radios. Then we had the emergency response trailer and pickup.
And did we do one vehicle with ARPA last year? Forgot what we did with that. We definitely did a SNARPA split on vehicles for this last year, I thought.
Yes, there was one in the budget and then one either opera or capital.
No, one opera.
One opera and one in the budget.
So this is bringing us up to fully funding that line item. Okay. The vehicle line. Because
Yeah.
we're supposed to be, what, is it 2 new vehicles every year? Or is it 1?
We put, they're proposing 2.
Yeah.
We definitely want to have at least 1 in the budget because we are getting those other 2 vehicles from CDS money. So we definitely want to keep at least 1 in that budget line item for sure.
Okay. Vice President LeBlanc.
Very important question. You have a budget line item for dog food for Jovi? Just want to make sure he gets fed. All right, just want to make sure.
That's your town council salary.
But going back to my point though, I think the chief, you know that you have more salary dollars than you probably need with the 2 extra positions potentially. And then if you also have the retirements throwing in there as well, there's probably even more salary dollars that I understand you don't have a crystal ball. It's just like in snowstorms, like you don't know when they're going to retire. I get it. But it's not just the police department, in my opinion. There's probably savings in a lot of the departments when it comes to these salaries are in there for a full year when we know we're not going to be hiring on 7/1. So just want to throw that out there for the council.
Anything else on this, on Department 710? I guess.
They do have the pension line item in there, in total 6,141,422. That is from the actuary, and the last year when we provided the budget, we didn't have the actuary amount, it was slightly higher than the budget. But that's the actual dollar amount for the actuary determined time. For fiscal year.
Anything else? All right, we have next non-dispatch.
Part of the savings here was those custodians that were at the police department are in Kevin's budget now.
Got it.
So that's the majority of the savings, I think. I don't think there's anything else besides that.
I believe they had 1 full-time and 1 half-time facility, was that?
We did, yes. Or no, Kevin's.
Councilman Shockley.
Just to have a better baseline, if we could figure out how much of the budgets that have seen large increases are based on just moving money to their budget as opposed to them increasing line items, I think it could help us to be a little more level set as far as how we're looking at all these budgets.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much of an impact that has, because I was thinking the same thing and I went through. Really, the story of this budget is, in terms of the increases, police, DPW, Parks and Rec, and schools. That's the story of the increase, if we're talking about what's moving the needle. Yep, non-dispatch. Any other comments, questions? All right. Dispatch.
So the changes in this budget, mainly contractual changes, raises. There hasn't been any additional personnel or anything.
Yeah, so Council 94 got the 3% retro, and they're getting 3%. Hopefully, once the contract gets done, they're scheduled to get 3% this year, and then 3% January of 25. So that's the increase for salaries.
So one thing, again, just for council, when we budgeted, or prepared the budget for fiscal 24, any projected raises were put into the contingency file. So rarely you're seeing multiple effect on the council 94, as town manager just mentioned. contract that was agreed to for calendar 23, because it's calendar. So calendar 23 was a 3% increase. If we're anticipating another 3% increase for calendar 24 in the projection. For that 3 years.
Anything? No. Okay. Animal control.
Hey, listen, just want to make sure I take care of the officer.
Again, with this one, the main changes with this one is going to be the contractual changes.
That was the council. Okay. EMA.
So with the EMA budget, you'll see in professional services was $4,000. That's to cover our match for the hazard mitigation plan. Hazard mitigation plan needs to be rewritten. And then down below on maintenance of communication equipment, that's going to be additional amount for the radio tower transfer, the conversion that we got to do.
Remind me again,
This is the tower that's being built in Foster. That
no, it was a different question.
Oh.
I think it's for Director Savetti. I assume we're paying our director, but this doesn't reflect that. Is that 27 getting spent?
So that's an assistant EMA.
Yeah, Lee, right?
Correct. No, it's actually Pam Larry. She's here now.
Oh, okay.
During the transition, she hasn't been able to get many hours when she first came in because of the lag time between her getting hired and in between Tim was before her. So she's now working on dam plans and things like that for us. I think the compensation through January shows $1,600. It's just on the regular employee line.
Oh.
With the budget.
Okay. So we've been, oh, okay. I see what you're saying. But still, it's not nearly close to 27,000. So do we need to be budgeting 27,000 if we haven't hit that in the last 3 years? Come even close? We
haven't spent it,
that's-
we've just budgeted it.
That's what I don't understand. But why the 27.5 then?
That's for the EMPG grant.
No.
So we have to budget 27.5 to get 12?
Well, it's a match.
But we're not spending it.
So 12.5 is from the federal government, the state government? Federal? So from the state, and we have to do 12. But why would we fight for? This seems like my mom trying to explain how she saved money when she bought something on sale. Yes, girl math, precisely. So why would we strive to reach a grant that we're not spending the money on, even half on? But we're trying to get a grant to pay. Kim sees what I'm saying. I don't understand why we would want the grant at all if we're not even spending the grant amount. Why would we strive to match the grant?
So we've had short amounts of time with different assistants, so they haven't been able to utilize the grant. We had Jill who utilized the most, and then when she left, there was a lag time between getting Tim for the hiring process. And then he was here, and he was here for a short window. And then we had another gap, and then we hired Pam. Pam's been here.
So you're telling me that when someone is in this position and there's continuity, the 27.5 should be spent over the course of a year.
Correct.
Okay. I just think that if this goes another year where it doesn't get spent over $5,000, we need to seriously reassess why we would budget that if we're not gonna spend it. I mean, or at least, I don't know. Maybe I'm,
They may not even award it if we don't end up hitting those benchmarks either.
that's what I mean.
So
To this point, they have given us the grant every year, right? Like it's showing as a deduction. So we've gotten the grant every year simply by saying we were going to spend a certain amount of money, but not spending it. I mean, it's honestly a revenue source right now.
Right.
So we have to spend it first and submit. So we're not getting the money.
and get quarterly reports on it.
It's not a revenue source.
Yeah. Yep, yeah. Okay.
Also, 12,500 times 2 is 25,000, not 27,500. So I'm just still wondering where we get our numbers from, but whatever. That's girl math.
Okay. Anything else on that? Okay.
If I can just add one thing, I should have prefaced the whole meeting by this, but just so you guys know, obviously, police got a 3% increase. Council 94 is looking at 3% increase. We just budgeted 2% for directors and other non-union personnel. So I don't know if the council has an appetite to raise that, lower that, or what you guys want to do. But right now, I just put 2% in there for right now.
I would, based on that question, like to see the difference between 2 and 3% for directors, only because last year, a high percentage was recommended, if I'm remembering correctly, to get them in line with other directors in other towns. And we decreased that to a more manageable level. So I do want to know those differences as we're looking at the budget. And then the only other dumb place I wanted to point out that there's a little guy math that I'm not understanding is the town council page. It just seems the amount proposed is not 4,500 times 7.
It's not, it's a pot year,
To bring in the new people.
November.
There you go.
Yeah.
All I needed was that explanation.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Let's see that with payroll. Did it for the town council stipend. Let's do it for positions that we haven't hired for. You know?
We really eliminated
We know
those.
It's taxes, it's benefits.
Yeah.
That could be a
Because
good size.
the person that, this deputy finance director that we had in the budget last year, we eliminated. My secretary, we eliminated. So some of those positions aren't even in there, but I know what you're saying.
Crossing guards.
Crossing guards are a 2% raise.
Yep.
They go by posts.
Fire dispatch fees. Yeah. Yep. Anything else for any of the police related departments? Okay, thank you for your patience.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, at this time, no one in council chambers, is there anyone on Zoom who'd like to make a public comment? Just raise your hand. Hi, just unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record.
Can you hear, my name is Lisa Narkowitz, address 21 Beach Street, Coventry. I'm just want to comment that I'm really disappointed. I heard not one word about Briar Point throughout the entire discussion of Parks and Rec. I heard about all kinds of things. I heard about Band-Aids. I heard about medicine. Not one word about Briar Point. So we have no idea what the plans are.
The budget process is not complete. The town manager also has a budget presentation to make. I know that there's been conversations between the Parks and Rec director and the town manager regarding the beach and how it will be run this year. So I hear your frustration, but I would just tell you that just because it wasn't discussed tonight doesn't mean it's not a priority.
Okay, when will the next time that Parks and Rec will be discussed?
I don't know. I'd have to talk to the town manager about when we're going to put it on an agenda.
Okay, I'll keep listening. I would appreciate it if, you know, you as our district person would certainly make an effort to let us know what's going on at Briar Point.
Yep, I think I'm pretty in touch with you. I'm on your listserv about the Tyoke Lake Association. I have both you and your husband's phone number, and we've kept in pretty close contact, and we've met pretty intimately and frequently about the issues you've brought up with respect to the association, and I don't expect that to change.
Well, I'm talking about in reference to Briar Point.
Yep, and you guys have kept me in the loop on that, and you've texted me throughout each summer that I've been in the seat and kept me in the loop, and I've passed along all of your outreach to the appropriate departments.
Unfortunately, nothing has changed for 5 years. So we are getting impatient with Briar Point.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public on Zoom, public comment on undocketed items? Going once, twice, 3 times. Public comment is now closed. At this time, I'll take a motion to adjourn at 8:20 p.m.
Make the motion.
Motion by Vice President Blank,
A second.
second by Councilor Shockley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We stand